They convicted Daniel Coyle of murdering his ex-wife in 1988. Then, during a hospital demolition 30 years later, a work crew found a sealed cassette tape hidden inside a locked utility box behind drywall, the night janitor's private confession. And it doesn't just cast doubt on the verdict. It says Coyle was never in the room. The official story was simple, and it held for 3 decades. Marlene Foss, a night shift nurse at Ridgeview General, was found strangled in a third-floor supply closet on the morning of March 4, 1987. Her ex-husband had a documented temper, a restraining order filed against him 6 weeks earlier, and no alibi for the 2-hour window the coroner set as time of death. The prosecution built its case on a single fiber match and a neighbor's testimony placing his truck near the hospital. The jury took under 4 hours. Coyle got life without parole, and Ridgeview quietly moved on, the case filed away as closed, clean, and finished. The first crack surfaced in 2019, when contractors gutting the hospital's Old West Wing pried open a maintenance panel that hadn't been touched since the building's last renovation. Behind it sat a rusted metal box, the kind meant for wiring schematics, not personal effects. Inside was a microcassette recorder, a rosary, and a handwritten note reading for Father Alcott, "After I'm gone." The tape held 11 minutes of a man's voice, later confirmed through hospital personnel records and a surviving relative's identification to be Walter Prout, the hospital's overnight janitor, who died of a heart attack in 2003. On the recording, Prout says he found Foss alone that night, that she'd caught him diverting medication from the supply closet inventory, and that what happened next was not something I meant to do, but something I did anyway. That single sentence detonates the entire trial record. The prosecution's fiber evidence was never independently retested. It was matched by an analyst who, records now show, had no formal accreditation at the time. The neighbor's truck identification happened at night, from 200 feet, under a single working street lamp. None of it accounted for a hospital employee with unsupervised access to that closet, a man whose swipe card log, oddly, showed him clocking out a full hour before Foss's estimated time of death, an early detail nobody thought twice about at trial, filed as routine. Here's why that tape sat in a wall for 30 years instead of a courtroom. Prout gave it to a hospital chaplain, not a lawyer, and framed it as a private confession meant for God, not the state. Under clergy penitent privilege, Father Alcott was never legally compelled to disclose its contents, and by the time Alcott himself passed in 1994, the tape had been sealed inside hospital walls during an unrelated renovation, misplaced, not hidden, according to the hospital's official statement. No subpoena ever reached it because no one investigating Coyle's case knew it existed. The evidence wasn't destroyed. It was simply somewhere the law couldn't legally reach. But the tape wasn't the strangest part. Buried in Ridgeview's own 1987 internal incident log, recovered separately through a records request in 2021, was a memo from the hospital's chief of staff, dated 4 days after the murder, instructing security to restrict access to West Wing personnel files pending further review. No such review was ever documented. No auditor ever asked why. That memo means someone at Ridgeview suspected an employee, not an ex-husband, within 96 hours of the killing, and chose silence over disclosure, protecting the hospital's liability instead of the man about to stand trial. That reframes everything about who benefited from Coyle's conviction. It wasn't just a wrongful verdict born of thin evidence and a convenient suspect. It was a wrongful verdict that a hospital administration appears to have watched happen and did nothing to stop, because a confirmed employee-committed murder inside their building would have meant lawsuits, license reviews, and a scandal no PR department could contain. Coyle's exoneration, filed in 2022, restored his name. It never touched Ridgeview's institutional silence, because by then the chief of staff had retired, the malpractice window had closed, and no one remaining could be compelled to answer for a decision nobody signed their real name to. So the tape explains who killed Marlene Foss. It doesn't explain who else in that hospital knew and said nothing, while an innocent man spent 33 years answering for someone else's silence.